In a world where technology evolves with lightning speed, staying up to date can feel like chasing a moving target. That's why I've invited top tech experts to share the latest trends and insights with us. Welcome to Tech Talks. What is the state of generative AI in Nordic businesses and organizations? How do we actually compare to the rest of the world? And why are still some lagging behind? Welcome to Tech Talks, Michael.
Thank you.
In generative AI, it's been talk of the town for a long time. People even suggest that's it at the very top of the hype cycle. But how good are actually Nordic businesses in creating value by using generative AI?
That's a good question. So first of all, it's correct that we've been talking about it for a while, and I definitely also think that we are on top or even behind the hype cycle because the hype has been very high. But I also think it's really early days still, so it's difficult actually to conclude. But overall, I think Nordics are doing good. The question is if we could do better and if we could do different. And I think our survey that we just did on enterprise, or state of generative AI in the enterprise in the Nordics, gives us some insights on the approach in the Nordics and how we compare and differentiate from global.
In the research you've done, what do you see being the value drivers in investing in generative AI?
Get a lot of indications, and a lot of it is supporting our experience and what we see in the market and how enterprises in generally are approaching. I think one very interesting area for us is how the C-level and the board is interesting and leaning into the initiatives in the organization and the enterprises. And here we see that we are lower in the Nordics compared to global. So put it short, C-level and boards are driving less and putting less interest into the initiatives in the Nordics compared to what we see in the global.
So we are actually lagging behind.
At least on that metric. But what we also see then that can translate is that we are lagging behind when it comes to scaling and implementation of the initiatives. And of course, that's back to the value driving. That's where we see the value comes out. That's when we have implemented and when we go into scaling. So we can see that there are some correlations between how much the C-level and the board is interested and leaning in to the initiatives and how well the enterprises are in actually scaling their initiatives and solutions, which is not a surprise because generative AI is not magic. It's hard work, and it requires an effort, and it requires a direction for what you're doing to actually realizing the value in the end.
So what I'm understanding from you is that, okay, maybe in the Nordics we still see generative AI more as a tech play than sort of a strategic play.
Yeah, I think it's still a blend, but again back to the findings we have now in the survey, we have that indication a little bit, at least that we approach it a little bit different. So how well do we approach it from a more strategic approach? What are the business value drivers that are leading this? What we have seen across Nordics for the last year is a lot of activity, a lot of initiatives starting up, familiarizing with the technology, familiarizing with the use cases. So why should we do it, and where should we start? But maybe the why is not that clear always. So if it's not directly linked to more a strategic initiative or approach or belief that we do this because we can do something different in the market, we can be more competitive, then it's also probably a little bit more difficult when it comes to the scaling, because the efforts is increasing at that point. There we have low barriers of entry starting, but at scaling it becomes difficult. So when you have to put in the extra effort actually to scale, and the why is not that clear, so you don't know what's the direction and why are we actually doing it, and why should we keep doing it even though it becomes a little bit difficult, then probably you tend sometimes to stop and to say then maybe it's not that use case, it's another use case, or maybe we should just wait a little bit and see what happens, where we can see those who are more driving it from a strategic approach, and that's where we see that a little bit more clear and higher outside of the Nordics. That's also where you get the successes and actually go into scale.
You've been working with AI for quite a while, helping businesses across the Nordics also within this field. But do you see that Nordics businesses, are they sort of starting using AI to increase efficiency, maybe reduce FTEs, or are they using it to create new value, create a new strategy of business with new opportunities?
A little bit of both. Again, use cases are across the value chains, it's across the functional areas. We see it all over. And that's one of the challenges for the enterprises. That's where to start, because everybody says that we have hundreds, thousands of use cases. But we see a little bit across the areas that you see here. And here the Nordics are actually very similar to what we see outside, so in global. So it is achieving efficiency, that's the highest. It's also improving innovation in different areas. And then it's also in enhancing customer experience, so the whole customer-client conversation experience, customer service, where if we should mention the three highest areas, that's where we see Nordics also facing. But again, the approach can be different than how do you do it and how do you start and how do you keep pushing when you want to realize the value.
But how hard is it for a sort of a large Nordic organization, a large Nordic business to start using generative AI? Obviously, a lot of individuals might started using it on their spare time, sort of going into ChatGPT or other tools. But how do you take it from sort of that very private initiative to actually scaling it and using it?
That's kind of the trick, right? How do you go from beginning to actually scaling? And maybe that's also one of the challenges, because it's relatively easy to get started. We know that from the Nordics. We have really high-skilled employees in our enterprises. It's easy, relative low technical barriers to get started. So to start the POCs, the pilots, whatever, is easy. And most enterprises have started that, at least those who have technical capabilities and skill internally. So that's the easy part, so to say. But it takes more, and it takes more than technology as well. So of course, one thing is to scaling the tech solution as such, but to realize the value, you need to do more. So generative AI is not only about technology and data. It's also about processes. It's also about humans interacting with algorithms. So you really need to run it as a change and as a transformation to get the efficiency out of it.
So where in the organization should you put the responsibility for the AI agenda? Should it be out of the IT department, or should it be out of the CEO or CFO?
The quick question is leaning towards the business. This needs to be business driven. It cannot be IT driven. But IT, of course, needs to be part of it, as all digital initiatives and transformation that we have seen. And I also think this is where, and what we can also see in the survey, that the self-assessment, if we can put it that way, from the Nordic enterprises is that they are well prepared. They are well prepared to start the journey. They know what to do. They score themselves high in preparedness, also in data management and in digitalization as well. And I think this is really positive, and it's a good offset, of course, for succeeding. But what we can also see is there's a little bit a tilt towards believing in the tech will drive the game, whereas when we look outside the Nordics and in the global, it's very much about embedding the solutions and the technology tightly into the business processes and running the transformation. And that's also what we have experienced and what we have seen. And that doesn't only relate to AI and generative AI, it relates to a lot of transformation and tech transformations that we are doing, right? Again, it's not magic. We need to adjust and optimize our processes to get the best out of it. And that gets back to the value realization, right? That when we do this right, then it might not be the newest and best tech that wins the game, but it's how you adopt it and how you work with the implementation towards the human support. So a lot of the solutions we are seeing on generative AI is very much about enhancing the employees within the organization, either to do something faster, to do it better with higher quality, or whatever. But often we have a human in the loop. And as soon as we have the human in the loop, then the transformation part becomes significant higher than just the tech part, so to say.
I know in the research you've done, you also sort of tried to identify what's stopping Nordic businesses from investing into AI. And what is that?
Yeah, so overall, I think it shows that the investments are there and the expectations to the investments are definitely there. So looking at the survey again, equally what we see in global, Nordic enterprises are expecting and planning in increasing their investments into tech, into cloud consumption, because that goes as part of it, and into the initiatives in general. But we see some other barriers in the Nordic, or the same barriers, but probably scored a little higher. And that comes to how to handle the risk, how to assess the risk, how to mitigate the risk, how to put in the right governance framework in place to actually be able, again, to scale and to run it.
But why do you think that is easier in other parts of the world?
We can see that the trust in AI and in technology is high in the Nordics. The trust in society in the Nordics is in general high, so that translates really well. We are probably also very compliant in the Nordics, or at least we rely a lot on regulation and legislation that will support us doing the right things. And here we are at early days, so we have new regulation coming in, and we want to of course, to align with that, and we need to understand it and want to understand it. And when that's new and a little bit unclear, and we want to be compliant, and probably don't have the right, tools and experience on how to approach that can probably put us a little bit behind or stopping, because we want to do it right. And I think we can do some comparison as well with how we approach the cloud journey, where most enterprises in Nordics are working on cloud today. Some are still not, because they don't believe that actually they are allowed to it or how to do it. And I think we can see the similarities here, that we want to do it right. We want to be on the right side of the regulation, which makes a lot of sense. But that side is not 100% clear. So we need to find out where to kind of define, you can say, the risk appetite within the organizations as well, and how to move with that. And here I think you can say Nordics is one thing, EU is another. We have one set of regulation, and then when you come outside, of course, it's another set of regulation. And that definitely translates into the pace we are moving at in the enterprises and how fast it's going.
You took the comparison to cloud, because we saw a lot of hype around cloud sort of going back a few years as well. And then we saw sort of a landslide of where people started using it. Do you think now that we sort of are at the top of the hype cycle and maybe even over it when it comes to AI, that we now will see more use cases and stories about AI?
Yes, for sure. And I don't think we could get higher than we were, because it was kind of, again, magic, right? It promised everything. And I still believe that a number of organizations just believe that if they kind of allowed the access and usage of whatever AI application, then efficiency would increase and whatever. And now we know it's not magic. That has been proved. So I'm sure we are on top and behind the hype cycle. Something can happen again and again. We're realizing it's hard work, and with that comes disappointment, because it also requires additional investment and effort to actually realize the value in the end. And I'm 100% sure that will also translate into disappointment, so to say. But we also see those who are succeeding, and we are seeing the numbers now that people are actually improving efficiency, improving innovation in different areas, and I'm 100% sure that will kind of be the factor moving forward. That there's a lot of comparison in positioning as well, and I think we also see this in the survey in terms of, are you doing this from a strategic perspective, or are you doing it because the fear of the competitors moving faster, right? So as soon as we see more and more enterprises actually scaling, implementing, and realizing value, others will follow. And I think we also see some signs that a number of those succeeding, they are very prepared in communicating about their success, which will also move the needle, so to say, across the enterprises.
I love your honesty here about it being hard work, and it will be potentially disappointing because it's not a magic potion that will solve all your troubles. But finally, if you had to give one advice to a CXO in a Nordic company, what would that be?
Yeah, so back to the beginning, it is to lean in, so to say. Familiarize with the technology and what it means for your organization, for your industry, for the market. Consider what you want it to be for your organization. Is it a technology, a vehicle to achieve efficiency over time, and you just take it and harvest it as the technology mature? Or do you really believe that this can differentiate how you are operating in the market, either providing better services to your clients, to your customers, or whatever? So be clear on the why. What is the vision of AI within the organization? What is the ambition? How do you want to drive it? And where do you want to drive it? And then put the effort where you believe the value is. It can also be where it's hard to realize it, but if you believe that this is kind of the differentiating part and the most value creating part, then lean in there and invest and give support to the organization to keep driving, because that's where we see it happen as well. That if you only give it a one shot, then you probably fail. Otherwise, you're really good or really lucky. It takes additional effort, but if you keep pushing and you keep believing, then we see people succeeding. Sorry. So from the C level, be clear on the why, and give the support and the mandate, and of course the right investment to the organization to execute on that path.
Thank you so much for joining me on Tech Talks.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you.